Hey, lovely folks. I'm going to tell you the truth. It has been an amazing journey for me to learn so many great things and listen to such great experiences of such beautiful and wonderful human beings. So, welcome to the 10th episode of the third season of my podcast, Perception 101. As the name of the season is The Journey, Aiming Wrong or Right. Today, in this episode, we are going to listen to the journey of an individual who started an NGO named Voiceless India when he was just 17 years old. So let's not waste more time and start this episode with Ankit Puri. Hi Ankit, thank you so much for doing this episode with me. It's an honor and a privilege to have someone who has started such a great venture for the voiceless animals, and I'm really happy to have you on board. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Ankit Puri. I'm the founder at Voiceless India, and Voiceless India is sort of everything for me in the sense that for the past 4.5 years, I've been running this organization. I started Voiceless India when I was about 16 years old, almost 17, and my primary reason to start Voiceless India at that age was that I used to volunteer at an animal shelter. And I used to see the suffering of animals on a day-to-day basis whenever I used to go there. And of course, that used to be extremely heartbreaking, to see animals coming in from accident victims to acid attack victims to just, animals who've been abandoned on the road. And I used to organize these fundraisers for that shelter at my school. And when I used to organize those, what I sort of found out was that not many people are really aware, about animal rights. They're not aware about what is happening to animals because, when something happens to a human being, something like an acid attack or, something as, severe as that, it's all over the news. Every media channel will cover it. But when something like that happens to a non-human animal, there's literally no media coverage. We see animal cruelty cases once in a while on the news channels, but otherwise there's not that much coverage. So people are not really aware, what's happening. So that was what really inspired me to start Voiceless India. I wanted to bring awareness to the fact that we need to focus on animal rights. More than animal welfare, we need to focus on animal rights because when we give animals the rights they deserve, we wouldn't require welfare for them. So I used to go to schools, nearby schools. I used to talk to children, about why we should be kind towards animals, about how we should be kind towards animals. And that's how it all started. Now, of course, in the last 4.5 years, we've been doing various campaigns, from workshops to wall painting drives to reflective color drives. We just finished our reflective color drive, this month. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and yeah.
I can totally agree that it would have been a great journey because if you are so connected to something that that you love somewhere, and when you start something like this of your own, there is a huge responsibility, but there is some good positive vibe inside you that yes, you're doing it for the good. So that is incredible.
Absolutely.
And I am really happy to see someone at such a young age start something like this because I didn't have that much skill, or I wouldn't say that I was that much woke at that time to have this reality check that there are voiceless animals out there who are being harmed. And as you said, news don't cover up those things. There were not a lot of things that used to be there. I realized
Right.
about this as soon as we got a pet, and then I got to know that that feeling comes inside when you see that that I have a pug, and when he's sitting, and what is he thinking? Is he hurt? How would he say जब उसको, when he's hurt or something like that? And from there I realized that yes, this is something I want on my podcast because people don't know that, as you said, they're not even aware of so many things that go around, and plus the animal rights, that is one more thing that people actually don't know about. So I would
Yes.
really like to know, like, how difficult was it? What was difficult for you more? Was it the starting of the NGO, or was it letting people be aware, explaining them why it was very important to help the voiceless?
Well, both I think, I wouldn't really say difficult. I wouldn't use the word difficult. I would maybe say challenging, but because it's good to have challenging things in life.
Yeah.
But I'll touch upon both the aspects, quickly, like the challenges in the starting and the second aspect also. So in the starting, one of the challenges that I actually faced was my age, right? Because I was really young, starting Voiceless India at that time, managing school with Voiceless India, then college with Voiceless India, now a job with Voiceless India. So, it's always been like two things at the same time. And Voiceless India is also a full-time job, right? It's not like a hobby or anything. So it takes up time. So that was one of the issues I had faced. I also remember, when I was in 11th, my grades started falling. So my teacher was a bit, concerned that, he's putting in too much time in Voiceless India and not putting in enough time in academics. But then I did work on that. I did, balance it in a way that I was able to improve my grades as well. But apart from that, there have been challenges in terms of course, as we grew, there are challenges in terms of finances, raising funds. As your operations grow, you have to raise more and more funds. So that has always been a challenge. It continues to, of course, with every project, you have to raise funds, but then, of course, we are able to work it out. And apart from that, one of the challenges, because my age was that, so as part of Voiceless India, we wanted to conduct workshops with students. That was our first initiative, to conduct animal rights workshops to sensitize students towards this issue. Now, because I was so young, a lot of schools, were not really willing to allow me to come in, talk to the students, because they felt that, he's so young, how he doesn't have any qualifications. How can we just allow him to come and speak? But, there were a few schools who were, who did believe in the work that we wanted to do. And they did give us an opportunity. And I'm really grateful to, them to actually allow us to come and speak to their students about this, because if someone would have come to me and told me that you have to be addressed by someone who's your age, because I was 16 at that time and I was going and addressing students who are also 16, 17, I would also think twice, right, that does this person have the requisite skills? But that's how it grew. Some schools gave us the opportunity, and then we of course moved into other projects. And when it comes to the second part, the second part of your question about challenges in terms of making other people aware, I think that's something that every activist, every animal rights person who is working in this field faces, especially if you are a vegan animal rights activist, if you're promoting veganism also. So there are so many arguments that people give, from the fact that vegans don't get enough protein, or veganism is just like a fad, or it'll get over after some time. There's so many arguments, and we have to address them on a constant basis, whether it's in person, whether it's on social media, whether it's the trolls who are trolling our posts on social media. But I think it's just the fact that there is resistance, the fact that people are not accepting veganism immediately or accepting animal rights immediately. I think that shows that there is some change coming, right? Because if there was no change, people would be just accepting everything, then there was no need to bring about a change. The fact that there are people who are not very open to the idea of veganism, that shows that there is some change coming because of the work that we are doing, many other organizations are doing. So of course, yes.
I guess the challenge is going to be there for a while, because as I've seen one of your interviews, when I was going through your Instagram profile, you actually told this, that there will be a set of challenges, but if you get through that hurdle, you will start growing. And talking about your Instagram profile, your online presence, it has increased a lot in the last few years, as you have told in that interview as well. And I am really impressed, because, as I said, at 16, having this thought to help others is something that doesn't come up so easily. And I'm really happy to see someone like you, who is of my age. And there are many more activists out there whom I also don't know about, but there, and they are talking about it, working on it, and spreading the message there. So thank you so much for doing that. To be honest, I'm really happy that people like you do that, actually. One question that I have for you is, what kind of prejudices that you faced when you did something like this? As it takes as the topic is to talk about protection of the voiceless animals, and we are also talking about a lot of other things here, veganism and everything. There are a lot of notions that you had to break, and let people have a clear perception, or clear idea of what you are doing, the clear vision. So what kind of prejudices did you face regarding that?
Okay. So I mean, when it comes to prejudices, people have their own, thoughts on the animal rights movement, on veganism, on the vegan movement, and it's obviously it's upsetting to sometimes see the kind of thoughts people have. People think that it's an extreme movement. Going vegan is something which is extremely like extremely extreme. Like no one would otherwise go vegan if they're not very passionate, but people say, as I said, earlier about the nutrition argument that, vegans don't get enough protein or enough calcium or, all of these nutrients. There are different arguments from the health perspective. People also argue sometimes that it's okay, to kill animals, because if we don't kill them, they will overpopulate the planet and take over the earth, and all of these things. People also say that if we I mean, if we don't kill animals, our environment will not sustain, because they will eat up all the food that is available. So there are all kinds of arguments that you have to face, whether it's from the animal cruelty perspective, from the environmental perspective, from the health perspective. But the idea, I mean, I don't generally blame people that much coming with these arguments, because there's a level of ignorance, right? If you're not aware of a certain topic, you can't be expected to really know about it. But what really upsets me is that those people who are aware of it, and those people who have got the knowledge through whatever means, they have seen our page, they've seen our posts, if I've spoken to them somewhere, and yet they don't want to bring about a change in their lifestyle. That's what sometimes upsets me. But other than that, I mean, prejudices are there for veganism. I mean, you'll have 1,000 arguments against it that people will make, but then there are 1,000 answers to those arguments as well. Yeah.
But can you just let me and the listeners actually know, like, how did this idea altogether come about? Because to start something like this, which is a very, a step to change a lot of perspectives around, you need that enthusiasm, that confidence, and it comes out of the blue in you sometimes. As you said that you were working with other ventures out there who were helping animals here and there, and there are a lot of things that you have done. So just to get the whole idea of how that clicked for you, so can you tell us about that?
So there are various ways in which it clicked. I mean, one, as I said, which was volunteering at the animal shelter, Friendly Cause. It's in Delhi. Other than that, as you said that you have a companion animal at home, a pug at home. Similarly, I have 3 companion animals at home as well. So the fact that you have like dogs at home, it just makes you more compassionate. It helps you understand the fact that they go through suffering which they can't communicate to you. So it just motivates you to be a voice for many other animals out there as well. And other than that, of course, social media has played a big role. When I was like 15, 16, I used to, I mean, even now I do see videos and stuff on social media, but that is when, it really impacted me, when other organizations used to post, animal cruelty videos, and what's happening in these animal agriculture industries, whether it's the meat industry, the leather industry, the dairy industry. So that's how I kind of got impacted. And even though I'm vegan right now, I've of course not been vegan my whole life. I was non-vegetarian at a point. I turned vegetarian when I was 16, and then I turned vegan when I was 19. Right, so it's been a journey. It's been like, as and when I've gotten aware of a particular issue, I've tried to bring a change in my lifestyle, and then through Voiceless India, in other people's lifestyles as well. So yeah.
It's a process, as you said, that me also getting to understand a lot of these ideas, a lot of different things that I want to talk about, whether it's stereotypes or whether it's something that has to change. It's been a process for me as well to understand those things. And I guess, as you said, first you were not vegan since the day you were born. Obviously, you learned how things were, how things needs to change, and now you're spreading that message. And it's really nice to see people understand why veganism is important. I still can't, to be honest. I am trying to go there, but it's a bit difficult. But eventually, when I will learn more of things about it, and when I'll understand the process, I'll get there as well. So this goes for everyone out there. When I say this particular word, pandemic, what comes to your mind? How does it, what things do come to your mind in respect to Voiceless India, plus your life as well when it's included with Voiceless India?
So a lot of things come to my mind when you say the word pandemic. Of course, the first few things that come to my mind are obviously, a sense of fear, anxiety, loss. All of these things are definitely, that come to my mind. Right now, especially, with the second wave, literally ravaging the country, you can't think of anything other than loss and anxiety and stuff. But, when I generally look at pandemic, the first thing that really comes to my mind is, the fact that it could have been prevented. That is what really comes to my mind, that if people were not consuming all these, from these wet markets. It all started in Wuhan in China, right, from a wet market. And it's not the first epidemic, or it's not the first outbreak of a virus that we've seen. We've seen, SARS, in 2003. We've seen a pandemic earlier, 100 years back. We've seen, swine flu. We've seen so many outbreaks, and each and every outbreak that, the major outbreaks that we have seen, all of them have come from animals, right, from zoonotic diseases. Whether it's pigs, whether it's chickens, whether it's cows, every thing comes from, most of them comes from animals. And that's what really comes to my mind, that, all of this could have been prevented if, people were more plant-based, if they were, adopting a plant-based lifestyle. Apart from that, when it comes to Voiceless India, I would definitely say that, we've had such a huge shift in the work that we are doing, in the way the work is being done. Because prior to the pandemic, whether, if you're doing a workshop, we used to go to a school and, conduct it in person. Or if you're doing a wall painting drive, people used to come together and, we used to do everything like together. But of course, after the pandemic and the lockdowns, obviously that was not possible. So we had to kind of shift all our operations online, do our campaigns online, do our meetings online, everything had to be shifted to virtual platforms, do our workshops with schools and colleges. We've been doing our workshops through Zoom and, through Google Meet and all of these things. So, these are various things that come to my mind. But, as I said, the most important thing that I just feel is that, I just hope that this pandemic brings some sort of realization, because this is one pandemic that we are going through. After this, God forbid, I hope we don't go through another pandemic, but, if the same kind of, consumption patterns continue in terms of animal products, we will, inevitably see more outbreaks of viruses, more epidemics, more pandemics. So I just hope that, this brings some realization in people. People start, eliminating animal products.
The shift of being personally conducting all the things, now shifting to a whole virtual world, how has it been for you? Because going for to talk, I guess that personal touch about talking about veganism, or talking about how we can help and how we can actually prevent animal cruelty, or how can we talk about helping other animals who are out there in the street or at home, whatever it is. It has been difficult for sure. So how did you manage that that actual shift, because there has to be that personal touch, I guess, because you're talking about something that people don't know about. Mostly people
Yes.
don't even understand about animal cruelty. We have seen so many different videos where it's just for fun for them to harm any kind of animal which is out there, and it's a certain shift. So I would really like to know how did you cooperate with that?
Right, that's a great question. Because it was a challenge, in the starting, in the months last year, in March and April, that's when the lockdown sort of come into play, right? So it was a challenge. We were kind of thinking about how should we move ahead, with our workshops and things like that. And yes, as you rightly said, when we were doing workshops in person, it always used to be easier because, you can see the body language of the children, how they are reacting to your content. If you, during the workshop, if you feel that, you should change the way you're talking, or you can see what, how you're impacting the children. But after, when we're doing it on virtual platforms, obviously you can't really see the children, right? Because their webcams are off. And even if they're on, you can't really figure out their body language. So we basically kind of work with child psychologists and with teachers, to kind of make tweak the curriculums such that they impact the children in the best manner possible. So we again, we sat with some child psychologists, with some teachers, to kind of understand that how can we really make our workshops, as impactful as they were before the pandemic, and through these virtual means, how can we really reach out to children. So, some of the things that we adopted were, asking more questions to the children so we get responses. That's how we kind of get to know what they are understanding. We do more activities, online activities during the workshop so that the children are engaged, in learning about the cause. And then after the workshop, we sometimes have like a feedback session in which children share about what they learned, all of those things. So that's how we try to keep it engaging. That's how we try to ensure that what we're trying to do, the message that we're trying to give reaches the children.
There is a lot to learn here as well, for you and for the people who have been doing these kinds of things, because understanding the body language that you said, it's not that easy when it comes to virtual world.
Right.
So my next question for you is, how did you manage the volunteers? Like there are two set of questions here. How should a particular, like an ideal volunteer be? What kind of mentality that person has to have? Because there are a lot of things when it comes to their mind when it's about an NGO that they have to work in. Because some people need certificates. There is that greediness for having a good CV or a resume just to work in an NGO or something like that. So what mentality that volunteers should have? Plus the other question is that, how did you manage the working of the volunteers around this situation when it comes to Voiceless India?
Right. Okay, so answering the first question that you had about the mentality of the volunteers, I think at least for us, as an animal rights organization, the only thing that we look at in our volunteers, so we have different sets, right? We have volunteers and we have interns. So interns are of course different, but volunteers, what we look at, it's just passion, a passion for animal rights, or if it's like an environmental project, so passion for environmental sustainability. Apart from that, we generally, in our volunteers, we don't really look at, qualifications and skills and education and all of those things. It's just that if you have the passion towards the cause, because a lot of people, we see, volunteers who join us or who join another organization, and, they are not really passionate. They just want to put it on their CV. So it's just, the fact that if you are not passionate about a cause, you would not want to work for it, right? I mean, from your personal, like if I'm not passionate about, say XYZ cause, I would not want to work for it.
Yeah.
So I think just any person who wants to volunteer with any organization, not just animal rights, environmental, just any organization, they should, only volunteer if they're really passionate, for that cause. And if they really think that they would want to do it on a long-term basis, because, from being, running an organization, I can say that, we really depend on volunteers. We depend on the work that they do for us, the work that they do for the cause. So, if they're not passionate and they, just leave in the middle, or, they leave after some time, it kind of hampers the entire functioning of the organization in a way. So I think that's one thing that the mentality of the volunteers should have. One, that they should be passionate, and then they should be, attached to the organization for a long time. Now, answering your next question, which was about how we have managed Voiceless India's volunteers. So our volunteers have actually been, categorized in various ways. So for every project, we have different volunteers. So for example, since the last 2 months, we have been running our reflective collar drive, which is, in which we are collaring around 1,000 street dogs across Bangalore and Delhi with reflective collars. So for that reflective collar drive, we have a set of, I think, around 75 to 80 volunteers across Delhi and Bangalore. Now, so when we started the reflective collar drive, things were getting a little better. So the second wave hadn't come in, so things were getting slightly better with COVID. So hence our interns who were in Bangalore and in Delhi, they were going to different locations in these places, and taking help from the volunteers in those places and collaring the dogs. But as we were moving forward, and I think in the second half of April or something, the pandemic sort of again started with its full force, and we had to kind of cut off our interns going to different places because it was risky for them to travel across the city. So hence what we did was that we completely made it through couriers. So now what we are doing is that we are sending our reflective collars to all our volunteers via like a courier sort of a form, and they are responsible for collaring the dogs in the area. So we have kind of decentralized, the entire process, and just depending on the volunteers to be able to collar the dogs in the areas. And with other projects, like for example, if we are running a campaign, then we, the way that we manage volunteers is now through online meetings. We do conduct online meetings on a regular basis with our volunteers, informing them about campaigns. So it's everything. I mean, has been virtual now, or through like we are just eliminating the person-to-person contact, at least till things are better.
Okay. This is nice because obviously because of the pandemic you had to change a lot of things and you had to be quick about changing those lot of things, as you are the founder and you are working, you are dependent on other people, but they are dependent on you to give those kinds of addresses that address that positivity that we can actually do work in this situation as well. So that is one mindset that you have to always have, and you can't even panic around these kinds of situations, because if you panic, your whole system somehow it abrupts a lot of work that you have been trying to do. So that is really
Absolutely.
nice that I have seen, as a person who has just been in this life, you have just started living your life right now, I would say that. And there is a lot of things to come in forward, and you have this whole mentality of being aware of the scenario and coming up with different kinds of ideas to work on the things that you are working. That is incredible, and I'm really hats off for that because in this kind of situation a lot of people are panicking, a lot of people are panicking, and I mean there will be a lot of people around you as well, and the volunteers, interns, whoever is working with Voiceless India, who have had certain kind of emotional disruption, that anxiety around them, so that they couldn't have worked. And someone who understands these kinds of things, and that person is leading, it's very good to see that. So it's really hats off for that, and thank you, Ankit, for actually doing something like this, because a lot of NGOs have stopped working right now. I have talked to a lot of people here and there to get them in my podcast, and I have seen that they have actually stopped it because they don't know how to move forward. They don't actually know. So with that, I have this question for you. Like, what do you think about when it comes to failures or when it comes to achievements? I really want to start with failures because it actually lets people know that those failures say, people have come forward and they have got better achievements as well. So what will you talk about when it comes to one of the failures that actually has changed a lot of things around you and Voiceless India, and one of the biggest achievements that you have had? So from there.
Okay. Yes, I mean, I completely agree. Failures are, something that you really learn from. I mean, when it comes to Voiceless India, I can't say like, particular, like one failure that we kind of had, which kind of changed things. But I would say that, every now and then, if like, I mean, we do so many campaigns, in a year. So, I mean, there are some campaigns which don't work that well. There are some campaigns which work well. So the ones that don't really work well, we always make it a point as a team. We sit together, like Abhito on virtual platforms. We kind of interact here, and we try to like dissect, why that particular thing did not work. And that's how we sort of, and then whatever we find out that, okay, this was the reason that it did not work, we try to rectify it in the next campaign so that, that problem doesn't come up. So I think, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's one like big failure that, we had and, that really helped us learn, but I would say that every campaign has certain, failures, certain successes. None of them are like, full 100% successes or 100% failures. So those, failures that we have in every campaign here and there, we try to, kind of work from that. Like, for example, with the reflective collar drive itself that, we are running right now and which is almost coming to an end. In the drive as well, we have had, like certain times, especially like when the, second wave hit, there was a time like a few days, when we were like, now how should we move forward? Our volunteers were in the sense that, like, if, how will we move forward now with, all the lockdowns and everything coming into play? But then we kind of figured it out. We took about 3-4 days. We tried to strategize, how we can really get our volunteers back connected together. We hosted an orientation session for all our volunteers, to kind of build that motivation, that spirit that, we can still work in this pandemic as well, but we just have to take more precautions. So I think failures have been there throughout in some small way or the other, and we try to learn from as many of them as possible. When it comes to successes, again, there have been like campaigns, like for example, for me personally, I always, I really like campaigns of, so we have, two kinds of campaigns. One are like animal rights campaigns and one are animal welfare campaigns. So the difference is that, welfare campaigns are those that, like a reflective collar drive is a welfare initiative, or a sterilization drive is a welfare initiative, while, like a workshop is an animal rights campaign. So for me personally, I'm more passionate about animal rights because I feel that that's something that will bring about a bigger change. And when we see, in my workshops that, I'm conducting with a school or, with a college, and, in the workshop, during the workshop or after the workshop, when I receive messages from the students, saying that, the workshop was very, enriching, they learned from it, or, I've received messages saying that, I'm going vegan after your workshop, or, I'm going to cut my animal product consumption after your workshop. Those are like small successes in every initiative, that really help me as well as my team to keep moving forward, because when we see that some change is happening because of the work that we are doing, it just motivates us to keep doing it. So I would say that failures and successes have been there. Till now I wouldn't say that I've had a major failure or a major success, but so I've learned from both. Yes.
There is always that growing prospect when it comes to both the failures and the successes that you have had. One piece of advice that you would like to give to anyone who wants to help the voiceless, or who wants to be someone who has started something like that, something like you have started, because that will somewhere, I believe, help them to understand, even if it's me, supposedly it's me, that you want to give an advice, who wants to be there for the voiceless, whether it's any stray animal, whether it's any animal who is a companion to someone else. What would you tell me, or what would you tell the listeners?
Okay, so of course there are, I can like give various suggestions about going and feeding animals, giving them water. All of those things are of course there, and those are great to do. Volunteering at an animal shelter, all of these things are lovely. But I just feel that we are now at a stage where we need to start, as I said, I've been saying throughout the interview in different points, that we have to start focusing on animal rights. There's a lot of focus on animal welfare, in terms of like there are many animal shelters out there who are treating street animals, who are providing them a home, who are rescuing them, but there aren't that many organizations who are helping animals get the rights that they deserve, right? So when I say rights, I don't specifically mean legal rights. I don't mean like under the law. Of course there are organizations working to get them rights under the law as well, but I majorly mean the way we see animals. Most people unfortunately see animals as second-class citizens, right? They don't see animals as equals. And of course, when I say equals, I don't mean that animals should have voting rights or driving rights, all of those things. But I mean that animals should have we should recognize the fact that they can feel the same pain and suffering that we can feel. There's no difference in the pain and suffering that a dog goes through, or a chicken goes through, or a cow goes through, or a human goes through. And if we are able to recognize that, I think things can just change overnight. If people can just recognize this basic thing, that animals can feel pain and suffering like we do, I don't think any animal anywhere will be abused. So I just feel that if someone is really wanting to bring about a change in for animals, for non-human animals, apart from doing all the other things, which is great, like going out and feeding the street animals, giving them water, rescuing them, going to a shelter, I think that using your voice, your platform, your social media, anything, whatever you have, whatever resources you have, using it to change people's mindset in the way that they see animals. So if someone is talking about a chicken in a derogatory manner, in the sense that they don't deserve to live, or they should be killed, just stopping the person out there and telling the person that a chicken is also a sentient living being, they should not be harmed, just that much can actually bring in so much difference. Because when we see abuse, why does abuse happen? Why do we abuse animals? Because we have a mindset that animals don't deserve to live a life which is free of suffering. right? Whenever we see any person who's abusing an animal, they don't consider animals as sentient living beings. They just look at them as things, as commodities, who we can do whatever with, right? So when we start changing people's mindset, by either working at an organization who's already doing so, or personally doing it, on your social media or anyone's social media, I just feel that can bring in so much of difference. So if someone is watching this who's passionate about animals and saving them, I feel like focusing on animal rights is the need of the hour.
I mean, I am moved with whatever you said, because I guess it starts at home. Whether you have a companion at home, or whether you are non-vegetarian or vegetarian or vegan, everything starts at home when it comes to even talking about animal rights. Because when you said that even the chickens or even the cows, they are also they feel the same pain as we humans do. They're not telling to have the same right as we have, but at least consider that they have those rights to live the whole life and not being brutally abused, or even killed for just to be halved or something like that. So I really agree with you in this point. And बचपन से जब when I used to see people taking away a lot of chickens to just cut them off and sell it in the meat market, or even see some people catching fish, or even see some people taking away goats for whatever it is. It's their own thing. But during these scenarios also, I had this feeling inside when I believe a lot of people, even if they are non-vegetarians, will have this inside them, that you want them to just run off. You want to cut off that rope which is there and just let them go away, so that they also can have that free life. And I really from within believe that there is this thing coming up inside people, where they actually understand that animal brutality or animal cruelty should be not there. They should be there. They shouldn't, like, the animals should be there to be live the long life. And plus, won't you say that we need to change calling our our animal companions, which I am happy that I learned from you just right now, and not call them pets? Don't you think?
I'm so happy that you mentioned that. I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because yes, that is one of the things that we promote on our page also. So yes, we do not use, if you've seen our posts about companion animals, we never use the word pet. We always use companion animals. So because, as you rightly said, pet is something that commodifies the animal, right? It makes them feel like a thing. And that's why, yes, of course, I mean, language plays such an important role. The way we talk about animals, I think it plays so much. The fact that we should not be using the term it for animals. We should always use he or she or their, or some pronoun for the animal. So there's so many ways in which our language also commodifies animals, and our language then impacts the way we think, right? So one of the things that we definitely do through Voiceless India is to help people change the way they talk about animals. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
I really thank you for making me aware of this whole term, because I used to think, what should we call, this is not something that I bought as a commodity to be, playful of, or have my all negative vibes go away. It's not for that sake. We are also taking care of that thing, I'm taking care of my dog. Some person is taking care of some other animal or something like that, and that should be in their head that it's not it's he or she, and that's not a pet. It's something called as a companion which is there with you. That thing also has a life, like any person or any living being has a life. That animal also has a life. So I'm really happy to get that knowledge here and now from you. So thank you so much for getting that cleared up. The last question that I have for you, and I really everybody would love to know from you, is that what kind of changes do you see in yourself when you compare, the difference that you see in yourself when you compare the Ankit that started in 2016 around, as being a volunteer and starting his own NGO, and today's Ankit? What's the difference that you see?
I would say one of the major differences that I'm way more aware than what I was when I was 16. I mean, over the course of the last 4-5 years is when I have made changes in myself itself, right? Like from going non-veg to vegetarian to vegan, all of those changes. And that's happened because of awareness, because I have researched about these things, what happens to animals in a slaughterhouse, what happens to them in a dairy farm. That's what has really helped me bring about changes. Apart from that, I would say, like generic things, I would say, I've become way more confident, in the way I address people and the way I'm able to really talk to people. Like, I would say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, if someone was asking me to do an interview, I would be very shy, to do an because I've always actually been a very shy person, in terms of talking to people and stuff. But in the last 4 or 5 years, I think Voiceless India has really helped me kind of get confident and talk to people and do these things. And I think apart from that, one thing that I think everyone who's involved in animal rights or animal welfare or in any way to protect the animals would definitely say that, one thing that helps, one thing that they go through is increasing the level of empathy and compassion that they have, not necessarily towards animals, but just generally, even towards people. Being able to understand their problems well, because if you're able to understand the plight of a non-human animal, it's way more easier to understand the plight of a human being, because they can talk, they can tell you, so I think empathy and compassion is something that definitely increases as you are involved in this kind of a field. So yeah, I think these are some changes.
It's really nice to see, because some people who would be looking forward for this episode and who would actually listen to the whole thing, they would really like to know about you, what changes you have seen in yourself. Because if there is no growth when it comes to something that you're passionate about, I guess it won't work out. If you don't see growth in yourself and people around you, and what you think, your mentality, what you speak about, how you speak about it, there's a lot of things that comes out when you are passionate about something, and when you always want to learn and grow. That's how a career prospect should work. And this is really nice to see that that the point that you just mentioned right now about having that empathy for non-human animals, and then you understand that how around you even the humans are suffering from that, and you have that empathy, that level of that level of somewhere you connect to that person, and somewhere you know that what you need to show them, instead of sympathy, there is empathy that you need to show them. And that is really nice to see. So it's really amazing to have had you in this episode with me, Ankit, and I have learned a lot here today, and I hope a lot of people also do. So thank you so much for doing this episode with me. I am somewhere sad that this episode is ended right now, because I would have loved to talk about a lot of things here, but this is the time. So thank you so much, Ankit, for doing this episode. And I really hope and I really pray Voiceless India has a lot and a great future ahead, because what you guys are doing, what people like you are doing, they need that voice. And for the voiceless, you're talking for the voiceless, so it's really incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Before this ends, I just want to say that of course you are bringing in people who are doing good work and stuff, but the work that you are doing yourself, giving a platform to people to talk about their journeys, about the work that they are doing, just reaching out to people through your YouTube channel and the podcast and other things. I just feel like it's so important to do that. So thank you for doing that, and thank you so much for having me.
So guys, if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to like and comment. Do share this episode with as many people as you can. And before you go, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for staying tuned. Next episode, next Saturday.